Meet Dave of Delusions of Grandeur, actor, producer, and director of films like Tales of the Forgotten. He has come to assemble a team of freaks, geeks, and even worse, film nerds, to discuss films ranging from mainstream to downright crazy. There's Tammy, car enthusiast, and Dave's fiance, Dustin, reptile expert and overall horror collector, Jake, environmentalist and fine art film critic, and finally Brandon, a therapist with a love of film that can only be seen as insanity. Together under Dave's leadership, they are Inside Movies Galore. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the show.
To heal. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, but today we have been subjected to one more and a more film in a certain franchise that my fiance has brought to the table. So, Tammy, which movie did you bring to the table that we fine gentlemen have watched for you?
Shrek Forever After.
Okay. And, let's see, Shrek Forever After. I'm looking up the IMDb really quick so that I can give y'all a little taste of what IMDb says about the film. Sometimes they're very vague, but let's see. From what it says, Rumpelstiltskin tricks a midlife crisis burdened Shrek into allowing himself to be erased from existence and cast in a dark alternate timeline where Rumpelstiltskin rules supreme, otherwise known as Shrek's It's a Wonderful Life.
Pretty much.
But it is directed by Mike Mitchell and written by Josh Klausner, Darren Lemke, William Steig, among a few others. And it was a film from 2010, already that long ago, huh? A 15-year-old film.
Mm-hmm.
And it stars Michael Myers, Cameron Diaz, Eddie Murphy, Antonio Banderas, and plenty of others.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tammy, did you want to bring us into first impressions?
Sure. Let's see. I didn't remember this one that much till I started watching it again, and it's like, but I really like this one. There was definitely a lot of music in this one. I think, like your reference that you're making about Shrek, It's a Wonderful Life is another, how do you say it? Another good, maybe like a good point or whatever to this movie. It's almost got like a life lesson in it. Like be careful.
Like an Aesop's Fable morality to it.
Right. It's not so much be careful what you wish for as you don't know what you got. Like, and Shrek even says it. You don't know what you got till it's gone.
Right. Well, there is also a be careful what you wish for here. I mean, the whole make sure you read the fine print is extremely important with Rumpelstiltskin.
That's always been with Rumpelstiltskin, though. But yeah, I really did like it. It's just it it this one in particular seemed it like plays around with your emotions. I think a lot on this one, and how you yeah, and how you feel about all the characters. You know, because of what they end up going through on this. So in a way, it almost seemed a little bit more down to earth than like a normal fantasy movie. So I really did like it. I liked um you know in a way you almost saw different sides of the characters because remember Shrek is not supposed to exist. So you almost see like a whole different side of everybody. But yeah, I didn't remember it really going into it until I started watching it again. And you know how sequels go. Half the time the first movie is the good one, and like 10 movies later, you're like, is it gonna end now? With
Mhm.
other franchises. And I think that um I think they did better on this one than they did on 2 and 3. So that being said, let's go to Jake.
All right. Well, I have seen this one once before. I think I went to see it in theaters, but I can't swear to it. Kind of like the third one, I saw it, I was a little nonplussed, and I just kind of moved on. Watching it again, I definitely think it's a better film than the third one. I don't even think there's much question there. Uh, it's actually a remarkably adult-oriented film for this franchise, and all the movies had uh, some elements that only adults were going to get, certainly. But this one really gets into, IMDb was it IMDb? I guess called it a midlife crisis. I think it's more accurate just to say it's sort of like he's a new parent and still adjusting not only to that, but his changed role. Like people aren't afraid of him anymore, and he doesn't know how to deal with that. So it's like,
Well,
not,
he
what's
never
up?
seems to have a moment's peace.
Well,
I
there is that too. There is definitely that. But
I
it's
know
basically what's up?
I know even as a person without like kids or anything like that, if I had a lot going on in my life, I
Yeah.
certainly would want at least a moment's silence to be able to process everything.
Oh, absolutely. And again, my point being that again, it's the change. Like everything has changed, and he doesn't know how to deal with the changes. And so, yeah, there is definitely an element of the whole "It's a Wonderful Life" thing going on here. Uh, there's definitely an element of be careful what you wish for and all that kind of stuff. And there is a little bit of that isekai thing of alternate realities and getting to see what would happen to different people and different had things gone differently. Of course, this one, the central idea being that if he was never born, it would be a very different world for a few reasons. And so I really like that. I know that's a trope that's a little bit overdone and some people flat hate it. But I'm always intrigued, seeing the familiar people in new situations, you might say. And I think the movie handled it well. I would do. Brandon's texting me right in the middle of my my thing. I would do. What was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. I do think that this is not as good as the first two. I still say those are absolutely classics in their own right. And this one, I'm amused and saddened at the one and the same time by how they used Puss in this movie. It amused me and made me sad. I'm not sure where I fall on that. And I'm not sure where I fall on Rumpelstiltskin as a villain. If I am, he is a good villain, but he's borderline annoying character. Well, he is annoying, but is borderline more annoying than other things. So overall, I've got mixed feelings, but I do like the movie, and I'm glad I got to revisit it.
Okay. How about you, Brandon?
Yes. Well, this is not my first time. I watched it. I don't remember, much like Jacob, I don't remember when I first watched it. I maybe saw it in theaters. I remember hearing that they had acknowledged that the third film was kind of too kid oriented, and that they were going to try and correct some of that. And they felt like this was going to be the big blowout. This is the final chapter of Shrek, just like the poster here.
Right. And of course, we have a fifth one coming.
Of course. And from what they say, test audiences are already saying it's pretty bad. So it's going to be interesting.
Far along?
Because at least that's what I read an article in Entertainment Weekly that said that. So they're already testing it out, and hopefully that's enough time for them to make corrections. If they care. That's a big one. And I actually do think that they did, but I think they kind of overcorrected a little bit. Because whereas the other one I felt was a little bit too kiddie, this one I felt like tried its best to be a little bit too adult. Now, I do feel like it was a pretty solid one. I did like it a lot better than the third one. I thought it had a lot better writing. I thought they did well with the characters. It had a few moments that it did trigger some emotional reaction, which is good. I think any writing that can do that is good. Do I think it's as clever as the writing in the first or second? No. But I do feel like it did a very good job. I think it's actually a pretty solid film. I really out of the four, the only one I wouldn't have considered all that great would be the third one. And even that one was fair by children's film standards. So I have to say that as far as, and I had forgotten it totally. I had forgotten that I liked this one better than the third one. But once I finally watched it, I was like, you know what? I actually do remember thinking that this was better than the third one. So, yeah, like I said, I think this was fairly well written. At first, I thought that the animation quality was lower, but then as I started watching, I was like, no, it's not. It's just the really ugly designs they had for the babies. For some reason, the design they had in the babies made me think, God, the animation budget must have fallen. But otherwise, it looked really good. It sounded really good and had pretty solid writing for characters, even though there was an inconsistency with Rumpelstiltskin as a character from 3 to 4. But otherwise, yes, I like this one pretty well. It's definitely my third favorite in the series.
Okay, and David, how about you?
Well, I really, really liked this one. In fact, I would say that this was equal with the first one. Uh, I wouldn't say better. I wouldn't say better. I would say equal, because it does touch on some point reminders about the first one and why we liked it. I do think that this was definitely better than the third one, and way better than the second. So I would rank the Shrek film so far as well. I would definitely put Shrek first, then Forever After, then the third one, then the second one. I do not think the second one was as great as you guys thought it was. So, but I do give it credit for bringing forward the character of Prince Charming, which enacted him to enact in the third one. I like the third one over the second one for some reason. Just did. But I like a lot of the characters and the way they made them look in this one better. I liked the way that they portrayed Rumpelstiltskin in here. They gave him a little bit of a character, although my favorite version of Rumpel will always be Once Upon a Time version.
Mr. Gold.
Or there's this musical version of Once Upon a Brothers Grimm that I wish that we would get a better copy of.
You're talking the Once Upon a Time, like the ABC show that came on a while back?
No. This was with Dean Jones playing one of the brothers, and they went around and got lost a little bit. And
well, the Once Upon a Time. The other one is that was the TV show.
Yeah, that was the TV show. The other one that I'm talking about.
He was Mr. Gold, right?
Yeah.
That
was a very good version of.
Yeah.
But there was another one where Rumpelstiltskin jumped around and did a song called "My Name Is Rumpelstiltskin." My name is Rumpelstiltskin, and then he went through like a ton of names that he had on like a big ass scroll, or whatnot. And Dean Jones ended up being one of the swans, and ended up having one swan arm, because when they didn't have enough magic for his arm to be whatever. But it was a musical stage adaptation of the Brothers Grimm tales. So, but yeah. Other than that, I don't think I saw this in theaters. There are not I mean, I've seen a lot of movies in theaters, but I think I only saw Shrek in the theater. So, but the characters are entertaining. I think they even changed the Pied Piper along with Rumpelstiltskin, because the Pied Piper was kind of a background character to begin with. And so they changed him a little bit for and made him into a full-blown assassin. So, which was entertaining. But in any case, I like it, and I like it. I think it's on par with the first one. It echoes the first one, which is why it gets why Shrek gets the original, because that's. Shrek is classic to me, so. But that's where I stand.
Okay. So So I suppose we should get into it. I mean, it starts out with a little bit of a backwards
Backstory of
thing,
Rumple, right?
right? Where Rumple is trying to get the king and queen to sign over everything to end the curse on Fiona. And just as they're going to, they get news that she's been rescued, but at, and she was rescued by Shrek. You know,
Well, and I kind of like their roll up to Rumple's house. They see a family that kind of looks like the House of 1,000 Corpses family of witches, and the queen leans over and locks the stage door. I thought that was a little funny.
I think she locked the door right after the one started playing the Deliverance theme, didn't she?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
it's funny too because I don't think there was any glass in those windows, so it would not be hard to unlock the door.
Yeah, it's more I guess it's more the whole comedic element, definitely, of it.
Yeah. But it's just, kind of funny.
You think for somebody that could actually, well, again, I don't know what his character can do, but the character originally could spin straw into gold. You think for somebody who could do that, especially with that he would be wealthier than he is.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he can't do you can't do for yourself type of thing,
Well, he definitely changed from his appearance in the third one.
Right, but I mean, like you're not supposed to be able to use witchcraft even to better things for yourself. So maybe Rumple couldn't spend the gold for himself, So you get what I mean. But anyways, and we go to see a day in the life of Shrek. And at first it's like
it's not just one day. I think it's multiple string of days. Just
I understand that, David.
okay.
If you would let me finish.
Yep.
You see that, at first you're like, oh, well, this doesn't seem like a bad day until you see the day like repeat. Every day is like the same thing,
Again.
Like a retelling of Donkey and Puss in Boots' tales for Shrek's life.
Well, and
it's like it was like Groundhog Day. Every day, it was like the same,
There are three things that I saw that were very poignant about each day. That kind of shows how Shrek was getting more and more annoyed at it. A, he wasn't able to use the restroom in peace ever because the tour bus always came around when it was that time. B, he could never sit down and have his martini because that was always when Donkey came in. You'd think he'd figure that out by this point. And then lastly, he could never take his little mud bath in peace because
the outhouse always needed fixing.
Yeah, the outhouse is always clogged up.
Well, and his swamp was part of like the national let's take a tour of the swamp area for bus tours and shit.
Well, as I said, that's what always interrupted him.
Basically, it's an extension of Far, Far Away, and as we established before, Far, Far Away is basically Hollywood. It's pretty much a fairy tale version.
With clogging up the outhouse, which is interesting considering that really to clog up an outhouse, you essentially had to fill the hole with stuff. So that's a lot of stuff. So he's basically having to dig a new outhouse hole every day.
Oh, that's just because all them tourists keep getting off the bus and using it, right?
Apparently,
It's a shitty job, but someone's got to do it.
I just figured that the babies produce that much stuff, because remember in the previous movie he said that they do crap a lot more than normal ogres, normal children. So yeah, here you go. And then you got all the donkey babies as well, and
Yeah.
so that's a lot of stuff that comes out of there.
But yes, it's like his life has become very mundane. He's just it's the same thing over and over and over, and then they go to the birthday party for the children, and it's Shrek do this, Shrek do this, Shrek go get this, Shrek go do this, and he's
And the three little piggies eat the fucking cake. I mean, that would
Multiple
be
times.
they not only ate the cake, they ate the cupcakes and everything. They ate anything that had to do with anything with
Yeah.
a cake substance.
And Shrek kept getting the blame. I didn't like that.
Right, because he was supposed to be watching the cake. And then when Fiona went to go get the candles that he forgot to get when he got the first cake, he was supposed to be watching things again. And then, yeah. He just, and then the one guy, the kid wants to hear him yell like an ogre or whatever. Do the ogre growl or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah, that kid was hilarious.
No, Nanny.
He was annoying.
Yeah. Annoying, but in a funny way.
Yes.
He was very annoying.
I love the voice. It just
Exactly.
So we see everything totally compound, and Shrek does do his growl, and then he ends up smashing the replacement cake, and him and Fiona go outside and have some words.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time this Rumpelstiltskin is digging in the garbage with his goose, and they overhear everything, and it gives him an idea.
Mm-hmm.
So his idea is to basically trap.
He
He ends up
basically
trapping
puts
Shrek.
He basically puts his foot in his mouth to Fiona and says, I wish things were back to the way they were. You mean before you rescued me?
Right.
Which is kind of a big insult. And she points out, you don't even know how many people love you, and you don't know what you have.
Yeah, that was definitely a big mistake on his part when she asked, "What, before you rescued me?" And he says, "Yes." It was like, "Oh, you just stuck your foot in your mouth there, dude."
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of us have that notion, and we all look at things in life and we think to ourselves, "Man, life sucks." But then we really rarely look at what positives we have until we lose those things. What people we have that are supports in our lives until they die. What things happen until they're no longer there. And that's human nature to do that. I mean, that's why, we try ourselves to be thankful. But a lot of times also when you tell somebody try and think about what you have, they're like, you're being patronizing. So it's kind of a different tactic there. There was a movie called Midnight in Paris, a Woody Allen film, probably one of the better Woody Allen films out there.
Mm-hmm.
Mainstream popularity about people basically not happy with who they are and where they are,
Right.
and really showing that nobody really seems to be happier where they are.
Specifically about the idea that things were better back in the day.
Yeah.
And then you go back in the day and you're like, oh, everyone there thinks things were better back in the day. You know?
Which in a way is kind of this as well, because if you think about
Yeah.
it, he's like thinking things were much better back in the day when I was hated and all this stuff.
Right.
But were they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so Rumple comes along and well, actually, Rumple stages a situation where Shrek comes along and basically, at first, Rumple gives him the idea that he's afraid of him. Okay, which is one of the things that is bothering Shrek, that nobody is afraid of him anymore.
Yeah.
You know, he's not the big bad ogre anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so first Rumple gives him that, and then he turns around and says, "Oh, I'm not." You know, Shrek's like, "I'm not going to hurt you or anything," and turns around and fixes. You know, picks up his cart, fixes this cart, and goes to go on his merry way. But then Rumple wants to thank him. So they start having martinis together.
Mm-hmm.
Eyeball teenies.
Eyeball teenies.
Yeah,
Which,
one martini. I'm sure I could have one martini. Yeah.
They're my favorite.
Like 4 of them later,
Mm-hmm.
they're still having the discussion about everything, and and Shrek is telling him, I like how things used to be when I had my swamp, and everybody was afraid of me, and I had this, this. I do love my wife and my kids, but I miss all this other, And Rumple's dangling this. Well, how about just one day? Would you be happy if you could just have one day how things used to be,
Mm-hmm.
And Shrek is just, oh yeah, that'd be great. Just one day
Mm-hmm.
and have everything just for the day,
He's like, what's the catch?
And he did say it more than once. What's the catch?
Mm-hmm.
Because he did not trust Rumple.
Right.
Yeah, no signing unseen, which was good. Shrek at least, but Shrek is smart enough to not like sign things unseen.
Right. Yeah. And then Rumple tells him, like, well, you want a day, so I need a day. It can be any day. It doesn't matter. It could be some insignificant day. It kind of leads them on, basically, like, why about one of the days from your childhood that you don't remember anyway, And it's like, okay, well, that sounds good, but yeah.
You wouldn't even remember that day.
Right.
But Shrek does like find it's like, oh, that's right. You can have any one of those days. And he's like, just need one.
Mm-hmm.
One in particular.
Yeah.
I don't care. Just pick whatever.
I tell him which one, but
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So yes, Rumple finally gets Shrek to do the deed and sign that paper.
Uh-huh.
And the next thing we know is Shrek is there's a word. He's just laying there in the swamp, right? He doesn't know how he got there.
Well, I'll say this: he doesn't. This has got to be the longest day in a lot of these types of things. He fits a ton of stuff into that single day that he's there.
He does. It's a long day.
Yeah. The first thing he does is he scares the tour bus that's rolling by.
Yeah.
And then I think that's when he tries to. That's when he terrorizes the town.
Yeah. He's having fun at first.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's terrorizing anybody and everything that you possibly can.
Yeah.
And they're throwing all kinds of pitchforks at him and missing him. And he even gets a ton of people trying to chase him down with them at one point. Until he gets to the forest and starts seeing all these wanted posters.
And you see the ones with Fiona on the cover, which that's what kind of triggers it for him.
He's happy when he sees his on a poster.
Shoot, there's actually a scene early on where he takes out one of his old wanted posters that he has kept as a keepsake, and he looks at it fondly. Yeah. He's perfectly fine with having wanted posters of him. It was Fiona's that really triggered it for him.
Puts it up on the mirror and looks at it.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, and then he was trying to make mean ogre faces in the mirror. So.
Yeah.
And then he goes back, he goes to his house, and then his house is not his house.
Right.
It's all dried up, swamp head.
Well, if he was never there to make it, then it's just a piece of swamp. Yeah.
Looks like somebody basically. Well, then again, I mean that's how we do it here. We end up drying out the swamps that we see out there because we like to destroy the environment.
Yeah.
For progress. I could see Rumple doing that.
Yeah, I could see him doing that.
Somebody drain the swamp.
Draining the swamp.
But if Shrek never existed, he never made it into a house. So
yeah, the house wasn't there. There's just a hollow place, but yeah.
Yeah,
because it was all dried out. It didn't have any water, didn't have anything swamp-like there. It looks like desert, basically.
Well, then again, most of the world did. And I was reminded, I don't know if this was an intentional nod or not, but I'm reminded of Lion King when what happened to the Pride Lands after Scar took over. It's like you get into the castle and Rumple and his witches are having a good old time. But you can tell that they ain't giving a shit about the rest of it. Yeah.
Well, you had a bunch of Wizard of Oz jail carriages.
Right.
Going around, and that's kind of how. That's kind of how he met up with Donkey, because evidently they had put his talking butt to one of these carriages.
Right. My name is Donkey anyway.
It's actually interesting because only a few years earlier, the third Santa Claus movie did this exact same storyline. Essentially, to me, the one with Martin Short did not handle it quite as well as this movie did.
Mm-hmm.
No, it certainly didn't. It was hard to get behind Martin Short as a bad guy.
But I also thought that Santa Claus, of course, again, everybody's opinion is different, but I always thought the Santa Claus's movies, the first one was the best one out of the three. So,
I'm
Yeah.
I'm curious. Apparently, the guy that voices Rumple here, Walt Dorn, was primarily an animator, and he did like when they did table reads. Apparently, he did voices for the characters, and apparently, no one they tried out for Rumple did as good as he did, so he ended up getting the role. But I have to wonder if Martin Short wasn't on their short list for this, because I could absolutely see him in that role.
He's a very Martin Short-esque character.
Yeah. Right. But,
I mean, shoot, Martin Short was Jack Frost in the Santa Claus, and he was essentially the same character
yeah.
as this one for this. Actually, like I say, I feel like this. The reason why I brought up the Santa Claus 3 is that this one really does feel like they took a lot of lessons from that movie, and when they were trying to do this, because there was a lot of similarity there. And of course, it's an old tale to be retold, but that's the most recent time it was retold that I can recall.
Yeah.
To this movie.
So yes, we see Donkey is pulling the witch's cart, and that's because the witches have captured Shrek, and he's pulling the cart and singing along, singing as he's going along, and nope, we don't, not that song. Okay, no, not that song. Oh, okay. Then they start singing,
Yeah, he's their stereo system.
And in the meanwhile, Shrek's trying to get Donkey's attention, and I don't know you. What are you talking about? Hey, I tried. I need to keep this gig and leave me alone.
And you can tell Donkey's had a much harder life. I mean, he's got much mangier. He looks like he's been worked harder.
Yeah, he's not. He's definitely not his normal annoying self.
Of course, this is after Shrek got basically taken down by the witches, who apparently are the guards of Far, Far Away now.
So, yes, Shrek ends up getting away from the witches and thinks he's rescuing Donkey, but Donkey is does not want anything to do with him.
Well, no.
He doesn't know who he is, and he thinks he's just crazy.
Well, he does convince Donkey.
Yeah, in the end, he does.
It's actually kind of funny because later I was like, well, why didn't you just tell him about this whole parallel world thing like you told me and all that? And I'm like, because it sounds crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting how he gets a Donkey to go along with everything in the end. And I do think it's kind of sad that he, when he reaches the tower, and he sees the numbers written on the wall and the little tiny princess thing and the cloth that she actually gave him as a sign of their love or whatnot, because evidently because when he first rescued her, she actually gave him a cloth, and he wiped his face with it and tried to give it back to her.
I do think that that's one thing a lot of these types of stories don't do, is they usually, a lot of the old Disney things, they really were good about making shallow characters out of their main protagonists. And I like that they really worked to give Fiona much more of a background here as well. She was actually not too badly fleshed out, but they really fleshed them out well in the series. And seeing that really does strike a chord when you look at it. When you see like the scratches on the wall and eventually realizing that no one's there to save her, she just has to save herself. Now, there is one thing I find odd, because at the beginning of the movie, the contract that Rumpel was trying to make with her parents was that they would give up their kingdom, but he would end her curse. And the contract just makes her parents disappear when they do sign it in this, but then it doesn't, but he doesn't give up his end of the contract. And that's weird, because he doesn't make any attempt to end her curse.
So what's up?
Because that's one of the inconsistencies I noted, is that one of the main issues that he had, he could have gotten far, far away as a kingdom. Because in the first scene of it, he's basically trying to make a contract with her parents, and the contract is basically, we'll give you our kingdom, and in exchange, you will break her curse.
Right.
And the reason why I want Shrek out of the way so badly is because if Shrek was out of the way, they would have signed it.
Right.
But when it does go back to them signing the contract, they just disappear, and she never gets her curse broken.
Correct.
And
It was an open. It was a moment where he was able to get what he wanted, but he tricks them.
But he has to. But the rules of the character are that he still has to abide by his contract.
Well, apparently, her parents disappeared right after they signed the contract. So I don't know what happened there.
Well, theoretically, Shrek disappeared after he signed his, but he still had to go back on it when Shrek finished the clause. It's a magical contract. You're supposed to hold him to it.
All right.
So, what I'm curious about is where was the effort that he had to break the curse? Was it in? I mean, the only thing I can think of that allows him to keep that is the fact that the escape clause does have true love's kiss on it, and maybe that was the intent. Is like, but even then, they weren't willing to wait for true love's kiss, which is why they went.
I think the reason he got out of his end of it is because they're no longer here.
Well,
They're no longer their kingdom, so I know what curse.
But that's still a part of the contract, and she still has the curse.
But he even said something to that effect, what curse?
Because she still has the curse in this.
Right. It could have been that the contract was worded in such a way that he wasn't specific, that it wasn't specifically referencing that curse.
Well, and I don't think the parents entirely read the small print either.
Right.
So
that's the only thing I can think of, is that he wrote some sort of loophole into it. That's the only thing I can think of.
And according to Donkey, one of the things that he said, you got to read the small print.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess I took it as, he made the parents and the kingdom disappear. So why did he have to follow through? Because he did.
He didn't make the kingdom disappear. He wanted the kingdom.
I mean, if that was the case, well, once Shrek disappeared when his day is out, how come Shrek reappeared then? Because, I mean, if Shrek wasn't there, he wouldn't know him as dead. That's the thing is that, he never honored the contract on his end.
He never honored the contract, and the parents didn't figure out that there was a fucking clause in it. So,
yeah. But Yeah, that's one thing that always just hit me as an inconsistency.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point. I honestly didn't even pay attention this time around, but it makes sense.
I mean, I could see. To me, I think that one of the ways that they could have, whew, one of the ways that he could have gotten out of it would have been if they had decided to make. Okay, give me one moment. One of the ways that they could have actually shown that is if they had decided to make that Fiona's curse over by leaving her as an ogre instead of having to deal with the daylight thing, because that wasn't used enough that they couldn't have written around it.
I
They
also
did.
think that some of these people who were creating this movie were targeting kids as an audience. We're thinking that someone down the line would have a brain to think about these things.
Well, again, I don't know. This one was fully targeted at kids. I think they would have had to keep that in mind. But I think they make enough reference. Both Fiona and Puss are aware of the curse as a thing to the point where she is keeping it secret from people. So it's obviously still on. But yeah, they.
They just the ogre society that's there now. She basically is. It's like she's not around. It seems like during the daytime when they would see the curse, you know. And like you said, Puss knows about how she's different during the daytime, but nobody else does. Just her and Puss, you know. Yeah, boy, Puss has definitely gone through changes.
Well,
right. But he's gone soft.
He entered retirement.
Yeah, exactly. That was interesting.
Yeah, you know, when I saw Puss the first time, I'm like, wow, what happened to that?
Turned into Garfield.
Yeah.
Quite literally, he's like, I can chase mice or what was it? I have all the milk and mice to chase that I could want. And Mouse comes right up to his milk bowl and he's like, I'll get you later.
Yeah. But I do like how that I mean, yes, it is sad what they did with having him let go, but I did think it was a cool twist to the story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it made it all the more funnier when he actually did show up in his boots and they split him.
But when he came down that like cat thing or whatever, he was like,
yeah. And then he's like, feed me if you dare. It's good times.
I do remember when I saw that the first time, when I saw this the first time, and I was like, wow. What happened to you?
And they kind of set up a bait and switch. I don't know if anyone else felt this way, but it's like Rumple talks about the best bounty hunter I know. And then, like, right then we're introduced to Puss, but the bounty hunter turns out to be the Pied Piper. But, yeah, that was...
yeah, I was definitely... I was thinking he was going to be bringing out Puss.
Yeah. Right.
Most definitely. And then you see Puss, is like, nope.
They purposely set it up that way, I think.
Yeah. It's kind of fun. And just like in the second movie, they introduce him with his eyes first. You see them peering out of the thing. cat tree or whatever it was.
And just in case we didn't go over it, one of the things that they did explain when Shrek was originally locked up by Rumple with Donkey was that, or was going to be locked up, was basically saying that once the day is over, you get your one day as an ogre.
Yeah.
Which again, if making somebody disappears means that you don't have to honor your side of the contract, he should never have come and appeared by that logic. But you get your day as an ogre, and then after that, you're gone because you were never born. Because I took the day you were born. And so Shrek has basically on timetable, which is why he utilized his big ball that he had to escape.
Yeah. Which I don't know if, did we specifically say, like you just kind of said it in passing, did we specifically say that the day that Rumple took was the day Shrek was born?
He said it himself, I believe.
Right. Well, I'm trying to remember if we made mention of that before just now. But
I don't think we did, but I did just now. So yeah,
it is an important plot twist, because it was a day that Shrek probably does not remember. He probably wouldn't miss it if he were thinking about days he would miss, but it is kind of an important one. Yeah. All right. And we should also mention that in this alternate Far, Far Away, some of our repeating characters show up in different ways than we're used to seeing them. And probably one of the most amusing ones is that the Muffin Man has this roadside sort of it's almost like a cockfight arena, but instead he's got Gingy going up against.
It's like a gingerbread American gladiator.
Right, exactly. And he's taking bets and whatever, and Gingy's like all battle scarred, and it's kind of wild. And we've got like apparently
how he's got a lollipop scepter or some shit.
Right, exactly. He like breaks this lollipop and uses it for as a weapon. And you got the wolf is basically working as a servant to Rumple, bringing him his different wigs. I love that. I like, bring me my business wig, bring me my angry wig. You know, it's got all these different wigs for different occasions. I found that kind of fun. But
I wish I could change my hairstyle like that. Okay, you got me mad. I want that. Okay. Oh, I'm happy right now. Okay, we'll put that one on. Yeah.
Right.
I also like that they called back Donkey's love of waffles a little bit later on.
Right. They got that
waffle trap.
A waffle trap, yeah. And Shrek's like, wait, we're in the middle of the forest, and you just happen across some warm waffles. Isn't that a little bit suspicious? Valid.
Donkey, you just can't resist, man.
Of course, this is after they determined that. Well, Donkey had showed him how to read the fine print. You basically had to kind of origami the whole thing. Like if you fold it a certain way, you can read the fine print. You know, that's like a super tricky thing. But
it takes Shrek to finish it, though. It takes Shrek to finish it off properly, though.
Oh, yeah. Donkey gives some sort of weird thing, but when Shrek does it, he's like, oh, true love's kiss. That's the escape clause. That's the way out. And so they go looking for Fiona, but she's not in the tower. But while he's there, he realizes that she had been counting the days just like you would expect someone to do in a prison. And that gives him a little bit of better understanding, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Out of the ones there, I could definitely see Fiona doing what she does in this.
Yeah.
Because A, she's always been a tough character, and B, she's always been a true-born leader.
Yeah.
And so her embracing her ogre side, which the waffle trap leads to the ogre underground, essentially.
Yeah.
Where they had the because ogres have basically all been kidnapped and enslaved by Rumpel as he's been searching for Shrek, essentially.
So she's running a rebellion against him,
Which is the first time you see other ogres from Shrek, really.
That's what thought was interesting too. It's like, where did all these guys come from?
and apparently he didn't even realize that those little ears that look like horns could actually be used as horns. Shit. But
well,
Yeah,
considering the
hold your
people that
nose.
tried to raise him tried to eat him when he was an infant,
true.
he didn't really have a chance to learn it.
And one of the chief ogres, Brogan, voiced by John Hamm, which is kind of interesting. He hasn't had too many voice acting roles to this point. That was kind of fun.
But some of those ogres were like really, really big compared to Shrek.
Well, they comment on it. Don't they say something like, he's like a little fella or something like that?
Yeah. Well, like I say, he never really had a chance to see a lot of his brethren. He might have been a runt. Maybe that's why his father tried to eat him when he was an infant. That's all we know. That's all we know about his childhood, and it was from what we got in the third movie.
Which kind of speaks even more to Fiona as a badass because she's smaller than he is. But everyone looks up to her, and
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because it's like, how did she become, the one in charge? But
right.
they all seem to listen to her and respect her.
And what was it? I think Donkey says. I think it was Donkey that says something like, "I see who wears the chainmail in this family."
Yeah.
He's like, yeah.
Yes, because the cook was going to cook Donkey.
Yeah.
And that's about the time that Shrek got Donkey away, and Fiona shows up all in her,
And of course, eventually they play around with Donkey, and I guess he takes and puts those eyes in his nostrils, and
that's why you keep him around.
Everyone needs a hobby. Yeah. And I like how the cook was fun. Cookie, I think, is just simply what they call him. He was voiced by Craig Robinson. But they're doing like their battle plans. And Fiona's like, what's this? Oh, that's me and my chimichanga cart. It's like, we're going to be fighting. We're going to be hungry. It's like, yeah, I can see that.
Fiona she doesn't second guess it. She keeps it up.
In the meantime, Shrek is still thinking about the true love's kiss. And that's the way to break this. So he is trying anyway and every way to get close to her. And it's just not working. Everything he tries just totally backfires.
He does make some headway, and Puss can actually see it. He looks and he's like, oh, there's definitely something between these two, but it's nowhere near true love, which is what they need for the spell to be broken.
They end up having a moment when they end up actually sparring off against one another, which is kind of there where he starts to actually try to meet her where she is instead of just trying to do the whole girly gifts and stuff like that. which would only have appealed to her on the surface even prior to that. So it makes sense on that. They don't really, and of course, with Shrek then having been told, like, well, tell her something that only you know. Because that was when it comes that line, like, well, why don't you just tell her about why don't you just tell her like you told me about the parallel worlds and stuff? And he's like, because she won't believe that.
Well, when he first tries to explain it, it's basically word salad. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. So he says, well, why not just tell her something that only she would know? Which Shrek just unfortunately decides that he's going to time that during the time of the attack that they had, which turned out to be a trap anyway.
Yeah. Yep, they were going to ambush.
Well, and then Shrek figures out through Ginger, the gingerbread man, that there's a price on his head, and he decides that he's and this is after, he's tried the whole true love's kiss thing and realizes that it's kind of one-sided. And
this is probably.
I mean, it works for him because he thinks he's in heaven, but when he pulls back and realizes that she's not feeling it,
Yeah. And this is probably one
moment where he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to sacrifice myself.
Yeah.
Well,
the part where Gingy comes at them turns into one of the darker moments in the series, you could say, because it's like he comes up, he attacks, obviously does nothing because he's a little bit gingerbread man and he's attacking an ogre. But then, like, they find out that there's bounty, and then Shrek goes to get more information, and he's like, all he sees is crumbs, and Puss is chewing. He's like, what, do you want some?
And the whole offer that Rumple makes is this contract that's like the ultimate contract. You can get anything that you want in return for turning him in. And the reason why Shrek is one of the few that gets out of that because of Puss, basically knocking him out of the whole deal. Him and Donkey, they end up rolling down, and he is the only one that is not taken captive of all the ogres. So what Shrek does is he turns himself in, and there were a couple of comedic moments where you have Pinocchio basically forcing Geppetto in there in a Shrek costume. I'm an old man. Shut up!
Right.
But Shrek ends up turning himself in, and in turn, of course, gets the contract. And whereas he could have used it to save himself, he instead uses it to save all the ogres. Which of course Rumpelstiltskin does manage to use some fine print on that one, and it's like, well, Fiona's not a full ogre, so therefore she doesn't have to go free. He does something really cruel with that, is chaining them up so that they can see each other, but not actually touch.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. We didn't know that Rumple knew about Fiona. We did, at the beginning we knew that he knew about the curse, but I didn't realize that he still knew about it later on. When he said that she's not a true ogre,
Well, it would have been the same contract that he signed with the parents. And that was the inconsistency, is that he knew about it and he just left the curse intact, which I still don't know how he got out of that, but I guess we'll never know.
Well, I guess the other thing is maybe there wasn't a time frame. That might have been his loophole. He may have never set a time frame.
maybe.
I say, I guess we'll never know. Maybe the fifth movie will solve the question. Maybe that'll be where it's all.
You just
The fifth
think
movie.
that everyone seems see when everyone goes to Rumpelstiltskin, they get a happily ever after.
Well, I mean, like I say, he still has to honor his contracts. If he didn't have to honor his contract, the whole premise of the movie would have been null and void.
Well, he doesn't exactly have anyone to make sure that he honors his contract.
They're magic. I mean, a good example is when Shrek does kiss Fiona at the end. If he didn't have to honor the contract, then nothing would have happened.
Right.
He said, "Nope, I don't honor my contract. Sorry." Done. So, like I said, they're magic contracts, but I guess we'll never know.
You know, that first kiss that they have. You think that the spell's gonna get, that the thing's gonna be broken because they do all the magical music and all the like the pretty background and everything, and then they pull apart and and you realize no, but you think at first that there's the kiss, you know.
Yeah. No, I think it was pretty clear that she wasn't into it.
Yeah.
Of course, I think that they would have been okay with the whole thing. I think Rumple would have won had he not decided to make a spectacle of it and use the dragon to try and take them out, which allows them to, which allowed them to fight back, and that led to them actually not only getting out of that, but actually taking down Rumples at that point. So I guess at that point, it really didn't matter whether he didn't get the contract or not. He was kind of screwed one way or the other.
Right.
Well, and them taking down the dragon brought them actually closer, you know, because they did this together.
Right.
Know?
And I think it was Shrek's sacrifice for her and for everybody else that really won her heart over at the end, which is, that's how these things work. I mean,
right.
Seeing that he was literally going to disappear, as he was disappearing there, I think finally bridged the gap to where True Love's kiss actually did work when that happened at the end of that. I did kind of like how Donkey is like trying to make eyes at the dragon. Dragon just eats.
Right.
Yeah, that was pretty hilarious.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, by the True Love's kiss, it does break things, and of course, the world Shrek disappears, and I think, oh well, I guess it's too late, and then things start to shut down. Like I say, I don't think it really should have mattered as much to Rumple at that point because he was kind of screwed one way or the other.
Oh yeah.
Yes, his lovely bog broke again. Remember, he had such a big thing about that ball breaking the first time. The second time, it breaks, and that's when all the ogres come out and everything. And yeah,
the Trojan horse, basically.
And he's like, my ball.
The Trojan ball.
But of course, with Shrek completing the escape clause of the contract, again, because Rumpelstiltskin does have to honor the contracts and escape clauses, because they are magical contracts, he is able to. I almost kind of look at the contracts a lot like, I don't know why I was thinking Full Metal Alchemist when I was thinking about his contracts.
Okay.
But that idea is that you have to exchange one thing for another.
No.
He is an expert of that. He has to, when he writes the contracts, he has to obey a certain set of rules. Basically, there has to be an exchange of good, an equal exchange.
Yeah, he has to get something for it. You know, you can't have this without giving up something, you know.
And he has to give up something in order for it to work.
Mhm.
So it has to be an actual give and take contract.
Except for the give and take on his end is it's a big take. what he's giving is nothing compared to what he is actually taking.
With the exception of Fiona's parents, where he just took it.
True.
Which again, I don't. Again, yeah, we'll probably never know where that plot hole, the full plot hole thing. But again, and I think if this was the third movie, I would have excused it a little bit more. It wouldn't bother me as much, because the third movie was mostly aimed at smaller children. So to me, you can have as many plot holes as you want on that. Kids are going to forgive those plot holes big time. But when you're trying to aim it more towards an adult crowd, and this one was much more aimed at adults than it was than little kids. I think little kids could still get some enjoyment out of it, but I think the little kids would probably like little kids. I think would like the third one better than the fourth one.
Possibly. I don't know. I don't know. I just didn't seem to care for the third one as much. You know.
Well,
I
again,
like this
but you're not a small child.
You know, you keep saying small child, small child. I feel like the whole franchise is aimed more at older kids and teens than small children.
Well,
But I do think the third one was aimed more at the younger end of that than
yeah,
any
that's what I'm
others.
saying is I think that was aimed more at the younger end of it than the others.
Yeah.
I think the first one was more for everybody, and then after
Yeah.
that, it just kind of bounced all over as to who might get into it. You know.
But
Yeah, I've always thought that the Shrek series had been mostly aimed at that, like younger teens to young adult demographic.
yeah.
This one I feel like skewed a little bit on the older side, and where the third one I felt skewed a little bit towards the younger side.
Right.
For me, on all this too, it was kind of like I don't. Well, you know, from the other things that you guys have put up, I'm not real big into anime of any sort or any animation other than the classics for the most part. I pick and choose. There's certain ones I like, and when I first saw this, I had no idea if I was gonna like it or not because I'm not really much into any animation stuff except for old school, But I gave it a chance when I first saw this because, I do I like The Secret Life of Pets and I like the How to Train Your Dragon. So there are some things out there that's animation that I do like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think animation's like any movie type, really. It's just a different method of getting it down. But
Yeah.
like most movies, there's going to be a ton that you like and a ton that you don't like. It's just a matter of things like there's your Shreks, which are pretty good on those angles, and then there's your Sallows, which that's live action, but
about Nilly
like
Frilly
like that. So
For kids.
definitely not
For
gonna
kids.
get it.
And I think that there's also an American component to it as well, is especially anybody that's like older millennial and up was raised to believe that animation was strictly for kids. And that's just something that's kind of ingrained into the mind. So most adults from those generations don't give animation a shot because it's like, well, it's all for like toddlers.
I still watch Bugs Bunny.
but that's, and I do think that that's something that we all have to break in. It's just another medium. It's of anything else. It's just like I mean, there's a lot of movies that we watch that are live action, but most of it's CG. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that's, in my opinion, as much animation as half of these are.
Well, yeah, the new Stitch movie that's coming out is live action, but you know, Stitch is not for real.
Live
That's
action Lion King.
Yeah, I was going to say the Lion King is the one that's total BS in the live action. Most of these are Lilo and Stitch, Dumbo, whatever. There's a lot of live action. You could call it live action, but there's a lot of animation.
There's a lot of CGI.
Exactly. Which, yeah, it's basically computer animations. Just, yeah.
I do still want to see the new Dragon one. You know, How to Train Your Dragon. Yeah, that's supposed to be live action also, but
yeah.
I've heard they changed some things in Lilo and Stitch to the point where they're starting to complain about it online.
Well,
they were going
to complain about everything. Actually, that's the thing I've learned over the years is I don't trust reviews. Because people will give a bad review without even seeing a film because they think that the color gradient of Shrek was not the proper green on the poster, or 1 out of 10 is a horrible movie, or or no, that actress isn't the one that I envisioned in my fanfic. 1 out of 10, or I really like this actor. 10 out of 10. And I think it's because of that I really don't care about reviews for the most part. Unless I look at it, does it interest me? I'll watch it. And if it doesn't interest me, I won't watch it.
It can help a little bit with moderating your expectations. And like if I think something is going to be the best thing ever, and it comes out and is universally panned, everyone hates it, then I'll go in knowing that, and I'll be less likely to be let down if it turns out that I hate it. But if it turns out that I love it, I'll be like, okay, I don't know what y'all were talking about. But since the bar was lowered, I'll be more likely to have that reaction. You know what I mean?
There's the reason why I do like that there is a separate critic score and non-critic score, because at least with the critic score, there's a little bit less review bombing or the opposite happening.
Yeah.
And when you have multiple, like you have lots of critics together, you can, professional critics, you can actually get at least a decent idea as to what's going on. But even then, movies and stuff, it's so subjective. I mean, it's so like individualized. As I've said this many times before, there's no such thing as a bad movie. It's a movie. There's just a movie that most people might not like, but there's always going to be somebody who loves a film. I mean, as I've said before on the first Sallow discussion, there were people who considered that their favorite movie on the first discussion this channel had.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I looked at it, I would say, no, that's a horrible movie. It should be burned.
I would disagree. I think there are definitely bad films, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's no value to them, because someone might personally find it good. But and there's the phrase, so bad it's good. There are movies I've seen that are unequivocally bad movies, but I still enjoy them. And there are great. There are movies that on almost every metric you might look at, they're good to great movies, but I look at them and I'm like, that's but whatever. It's gotten to a point where I have a hard enough time making time to watch anything that there are movies I was going to go see Thunderbolts. there are no two ways about it. I was going to go see it, and I did. But there are a lot of movies that I'm like, I'm going to go see that. Nah, I just never get around to it. You know?
Well, one thing about where we live is
Yeah.
Channel 6, they've got a gentleman called Gino
Mm-hmm.
Salomon. And he does a lot of stuff with movies and TV
Mhm.
shows and different segments on that.
He'll interview a lot of people.
He interviews a lot. That's what he'll interview a lot of the casts from the. And I've actually heard him say that he did not like something before, but he'll say if he didn't like it, but he'll still give kudos to some of the people, some of the actors in it and everything. You know, I think I mean, I know David and I too agree that I don't really totally go by what the reviewers say and everything.
I personally dislike reviewers that have a scale of 1 to 10 myself.
But I respect Gino because I think that he is very honest, and he tries, even if he doesn't really care for something, he tries to show you the different points of it, and you know, the good points and bad points of the film, even if it's something that he didn't really care for, you know, or at least give kudos to the actors or something, you know what I mean? He doesn't just sit there and go, oh well, it sucked, and leave it at that, you know. He
Stinks.
So
All right. So I feel like we wandered a little bit.
yeah, I guess we got to the point though where they got their forever after in the end. You know, they did get
Pretty much.
the true love's kiss, and everything went back to normal. And
Yep.
I like at the end of this, that whole montage, you know, when they were doing the actors and stuff that were in it, and they were showing clips from every single movie.
Right.
And I thought that was kind of cool. I thought that, you know, I really thought that was neat.
Well, this was supposed to be the final chapter. Of course, you know, eventually it's not. But that was, I guess, their way of kind of wrapping it all up. And, you know,
There is another one?
No.
there is another one coming.
It hasn't entirely been greenlit yet, but
No, they're working.
Oh, it is. They've already had focus groups still looking at it.
Coming
There
out
it is.
late next year.
Oh, really?
Well, it's set for Christmas next year. We'll see if that actually happens. But yeah.
You know, I hate when that happens, when I go get a nice collection box.
And then they come out with one.
Right.
You know, it's like, oh, I got them all. You know, I got this nice collection box, you know, and then it's like, oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Oh, they'll come out with 3 more short animated features for the fucking thing
Of
before
course they will.
the movie will come out. So they'll have another box set with all those animations included.
Oh, like the one that I already have?
Yeah, you have the set behind the one that Jacob posted that he had.
Yeah.
I got one above yours and one below his. I'm right in the middle.
Now I'm thinking about actually finding a better set because my Shrek the Third started messing up.
Well, you might as well wait until the 5th one comes out and then get
I might
that.
as well.
Well.
By that time, they'll probably say they got another Puss in Boots movie out.
They might.
Oh yeah, it's very possible. I mean, The Last Wish did pretty well, so it actually, in my opinion, that one went way over expectation.
Oh yeah, that was an excellent. Of course, that one. I still think that is one of the best representations of death I've ever seen. That was pretty awesome. But Anyway.
Yep.
Alrighty. So now that we're at the end of everything, let's go into production.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tammy, what did you think about production?
Well, I thought it was pretty good. Definitely a lot of different scenes and scenery in it, and a lot of different takes on characters. Because this is supposed to be, like an alternate. So you're used to having the totally annoying donkey, and he doesn't start being his totally annoying self till later, So yeah, I thought they did good with it. I thought I'm not really sure if I like the drawing or the how they made Rumple himself look.
Yeah.
I didn't really like him that much, his look. I mean, I like the production of just about everybody, but just something about Rumple's look I just didn't really care for.
I thought he looked like Martin Short.
So
I thought he was just as short as Lord Farquaad.
Well, apparently they intentionally brought together elements of all the previous villains, and his height was partly a nod to that.
Yeah, Lord Farquaad was compensating for something, remember?
Indeed.
Other than the babies, like I said, when I saw the babies, and it was like we started off the film and I saw the babies, like, oh God, the quality of the animation of this has fallen because they look horrible. But everything else to me looks very impressive animation wise. The movements, the character models. I mean, compare the Shrek and the model in this one to the first movie, it's worlds above. You can tell animation has gone way above what it was back in those days.
yeah, I'll give you that. I mean,
Right.
the babies looked a little rough.
You can even look at the poster. It's nightmare fuel.
It's funny you say that because I'm going through the quotes and I just saw Donkey, his quote, and I thought the Waffle Fairy was just a bedtime story. It's good times. But,
Anybody else on production?
I mean, it's pretty good. I agree. Rumple's look is not my favorite. I did love the changing wigs. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And overall, you can tell that the animation has improved. The hair in particular, you can tell the animation has improved from the first few couple. But overall, I'd say they did a solid job.
I agree with you on the hair. Fiona's model alone.
Well, they didn't have to make Puss look quite that fat, though,
I actually got a kick out of how bad it was. How the heck he was going to pull off being Puss in Boots.
And he had a pink bow on him, like the whole time. A pink bow.
Right.
Well, he was Fiona's pet, basically.
Yeah.
That's just like the guys that named Diego Mittens. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a 15-pound boy cat. You're going to call him Mittens?
Oh, that was Spoo's original name was Mittens, actually.
What, yours was named Mittens, too?
Yep. One of mine, who I named him Pahuko Gods, which entertained a lot of people who were giving him medical treatment towards the end of his life because they were recognizing where I sourced the name from. But really probably led to a lot of cursing on people who had to type the name out as it was spelled on pharmaceuticals.
Oh, okay. So I'm going through the quotes again, and the quote was where Shrek is talking to Rumple. It's not what I've done, it's what you've done. Thanks to you, the king and queen signed their kingdom over to me. They would never do that. They would if I promised them all their problems would disappear.
There we go.
Disappeared. So that was what the actual contract was, to make their
There.
problems disappear. And the king was his own worst enemy. I mean, that has been well established.
So they were their own problem. So their problems disappeared.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, then Rumple did honor the contract. So there we go.
Okay. There you go.
Inconsistency solved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that now that you mention it. So
I thought production was pretty darn good in this movie. I didn't have a problem with the babies or the way they looked myself, but then I guess I'm not an animation critic per se. Although I did kind of come from that same school of hard knocks where cartoons are for babies.
no, they're not.
I agree. When I go into a kindergarten, I think Ninja Scroll should be shown to every kindergarten class.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What should be shown to every?
Ninja Scroll.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
It's a
Ninja
more
Scroll and Perfect Blue and Akira and
it's a more brutal and bloody affair.
Oh,
yeah. You know, watch some
Or Elfen
Berserk. Watch some Berserk afterwards. You know,
Elfen Lied.
Elfenlied. Yep.
I'll stick with my Bugs Bunny. Okay.
Hey, that's pretty violent too when you think
Stick with
about
your
it.
Bugs Bunny as long as it's not the Looney Tunes show. That is horrible.
I don't like the newer stuff. No.
The Looney Tunes show was horrible when I saw it, and I condemn it.
I wouldn't know. I never saw anything past the original shorts, and I think Daffy Duck's Quackbusters was the last, most recent thing I saw with Looney Tunes.
Really?
Because I didn't watch Space Jam or Space Jam 2 or.
I never saw that either, but like
Space Jam was pretty awesome.
I think Looney Tunes. I think the same universe really like.
I, as far as movies go, I stopped at Back in Action.
Yeah.
So I never watched that one either.
I never saw it either.
I guess unless you could if you counted Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say I would count Tiny Toons and Animaniacs in that overall umbrella, and I definitely grew up
Tiny
on
Toons
those.
and Animaniacs were awesome.
I count them, but I don't because they're the same but different.
Yeah, they are. It's like I said, it's under that umbrella, but it's not quite the same.
I like Roger Rabbit.
They need to remaster Tiny Toons game.
Yeah. All right.
Of course, Max has HBO has made sure that you can't watch a lot of those, but they did dump some on Tubi, so there you go.
There you go.
But I guess at the end of the day, I like the production overall. So, but going on to music. Tammy, you said that the music was definitely infiltrated through here.
Yeah, there was a lot of music in this one.
There was a lot of music in it, but I'm hard pressed to think of very many moments that really stood out. I'm trying to think. Like
it didn't feel as iconic for me as the first or the second one, music wise.
Yeah, the use of dueling banjos was great.
Yes. At the ending, that ending stuff, I still feel It's not as fun as the little parties that they would have at the end of 1 and 2,
Right.
but it did feel a little bit stronger for me than the ending of 3 did when it came to that.
Yeah. And same thing with the beginning. They didn't do the opening montage in the beginning of this one either, but it still felt like a stronger opening, I think. But yeah.
Gotta wonder how that 5th one's gonna be.
I just know that it seemed like there was quite a lot of songs in here. It just, even if they didn't play the whole song, there was a little blurb, and a little burp, but that just seemed like there was a lot of music.
I think you're right. And of course, this time, I'm a Believer is covered by Weezer. Sounded a little different, but it was pretty good.
I do like that they ended with that because
Yeah.
instead of the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's weird because I don't disagree with you that there was music involved and that there was a lot of it. Maybe it just wasn't as effective for me because unlike the first two, especially the first one, to tell you the truth, I can recall almost every moment certain songs occurred because the song highlighted the scenes excellently.
Right.
Well, let's see.
I can't feel that here because I can't recall one to the other.
Okay, so they had dueling banjos, of course. Then you got a friend with Carol by Carole King. Then they had One Love with Bob Marley. They had Strange.
A lot of these that you're mentioning were sung by characters, by the cast, not necessarily played.
And sometimes hardly into more than just a couple of lines.
The Carpenters.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the Top of the World one.
Mm-hmm.
The Greatest Love of Them All. Papa Don't Preach. Tomorrow. Let's see. Hit Me With Your Best Shot.
Mm-hmm.
Rumble's Party Place. Happy Birthday to You. Click, Click. Nightmare. Sure Shot. These Eyes. Darling, I Do.
Commentary on Nightmare, I guess, must have been the Pied Pipers thing. Jeremy Stig apparently played the flute solos, and Jeremy Stig is, I believe, the son of William Stig, the actual author of the book.
Okay.
That was kind of fun.
Veronica Flow, which was by Enya. Shake Your Groove Thing. Shake Your Groove Thing. Shake Your Groove Thing.
Yeah.
See. Hello, I'm a Believer by Weezer.
Like I said, though, I mean, as Jacob said, a lot of those, they're only like little snippets here and there.
Mm-hmm.
For Once in My Life by Stevie Wonder, that was sung by Donkey to the Dragon to woo her. And then right back where we started from was towards the end.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, half of those I wouldn't even acknowledge more than just a snippet of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of them were Donkey because he sings a lot. Yeah. There's one part that was kind of amusing was where he was being used to drive the cart that Shrek is imprisoned in.
Yeah.
The witches are treating him like the radio.
Yeah,
and
that's where a good number of those songs came from, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, that's exactly it. To me, it's all about. It's not necessarily about a song's presence. There are movies where you could actually say 60 or 70 songs were present in that manner.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that the soundtrack was effective.
Right.
Or,
I mean, the soundtrack here was effective.
Let me change that. Not effective, but iconic.
Right. Exactly.
That's where I should say, because it goes along the lines of where we'll say the soundtrack worked. It worked for the film. It was enjoyable, but I wouldn't necessarily need to go out and buy it for myself. It's not one I would necessarily go out to listen to.
Yeah, I wouldn't go out. I wouldn't entirely go out and buy it myself, neither.
So that's really where I would land on the soundtrack, is that it works, but I don't really feel like it went beyond.
The last soundtrack I bought is I bought both Guardians of the Galaxy soundtracks.
Oh, those have excellent soundtracks.
See, there's an example of the use of that music being iconic and how effective it was.
Yeah.
Shrek 1 and 2 was at that point where the soundtracks are worth checking out. Just really the most iconic soundtrack, in my opinion, of all time when it comes to found music is "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" I will still stand by it, and I am not the Coen Brothers fan that Jake is, but I will still stand by that. That is one of the most epic soundtracks of all time.
Well, they have done several soundtracks. The first one was Big Lebowski, and then they did that one that were curated by T-Bone Burnett. And T-Bone Burnett has a great ear for music. And the Coens have a great ear for music. And working together, yeah, they've done some really solid stuff. But
I mean, shoot, there's Woody Allen movies that I wouldn't mind listening to in the background. I mean, shoot, Vicky Cristina Barcelona.
Well, I friggin' love the Sweet and Low Down soundtrack. I have that. I love that soundtrack.
My high school choir was going to take as I went down to the river to pray.
Yeah.
As songs to sing for our school at one point in time.
All right. Should we talk favorites?
Sure. Who wants to go first?
Ooh, me.
Okay.
My favorite character is that kid at the party. Make it roar, Daddy. Make it roar. Do the roar. I admit the kid's a brat, but the voice and the way that they portrayed it just made me laugh. And when they showed him again,
his voice was just like, oh.
Right.
When they showed him again at the end of the movie, it brought me back to laughing again. So I kind of give it to him. And favorite part of the movie, actually, the movie had a lot of good parts to it. So I'll just go. I think I really like the scene where Shrek and Fiona are kind of sparring, and they're kind of gaining more of a friendship, or they're gaining that Shrek is finally making a little headway into the relationship with her. And I think that was a pretty cool scene.
Okay. Jake.
Okay. Well, pretty much on principle, I gotta say Puss is my favorite character. But again, I feel he's underutilized here, and I feel sad that they turned him into a fat joke as well. I do like the idea of Fiona as a warrior princess, and I think that she does she's really well done in this movie. But I'm tempted to go with Brandon on this and give it to that kid, because that kid was freaking hilarious. and similarly, those scenes are some of my favorite. By the way, that's Ryan Seacrest playing his father. But
oh, really?
Yeah, there were a lot of random people playing small roles. Like Jane Lynch is in there, and Kristen Shaw, and a whole bunch of people had small roles in the movie. But it's I'm probably going to have to say, in addition to those scenes with that kid, possibly this is one that had several small moments, and it's really hard to pick a slam dunk like this is the winning thing. But that scene where Shrek and Fiona are sparring, the scene where he goes into the Dragon's Keep and he sees the chalk marks on the wall, and he like just has that major realization. Like he grows and learns a lot in this movie, and there are a couple of great moments that show that, and that was one of them. And the scene with Gingy in the gladiatorial ring was hilarious to me too. So I might go with those, I guess. Oh, and of course, Puss going, "Feed me if you dare."
Okay.
For me, well, I'm always gonna like Puss, you know. But I leaned a little bit towards actually Shrek too in this one, just because I I felt so much for him in this movie, you know. All he wanted was just to have one basically day to himself type of a thing, you know, and
Where he could be himself.
how everything got so messed up, and he was so hurt, and so, you know, how did all this happen just from me wanting just to have one day, you know? So I really felt for Shrek in this one. But Puss will probably always be my favorite. It's just I didn't really like the outward appearance of Puss this time. But favorite scenes. I like when they use the ball as the Trojan horse, and they all come in, and they have the big fight, you know, and then Shrek and Fiona are team up together to go after the dragon. So that like whole scene there, I like that one.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
Jacob.
Well, I like Puss in Boots, and yes, I was kind of like the first time I saw this, I did kind of have a jaw dropping moment with how fat he looked. But you know what? I think I kind of went with his character at this moment, and you kind of have to go with it. I did like when the Cookie had his gladiator moment. I also got a kick out of how Pinocchio brought Geppetto and had painted his face green to make him look like an ogre, and he tried to pass him off as an ogre, and he's like, that's not an ogre, that's your father, all painted green. He's like, no, it's not. And I like the fact that this was like the second time he was trying to get a chance to be a real boy. But when Shrek came, he was like, "Oh man, I was close." But I do like the part where they're sparring, and I do like the part where they're tying the shoelaces with the dragon. Well, remembering the words to it together, you know. And I guess I do kind of feel sorry for Shrek in this one too, because he really didn't expect all of this, and then the reveal that you know, he took the day that he was born away from him. But yeah, those are kind of my favorite moments and favorite characters. So
Okay.
I guess we're at the end of everything. So I guess hopefully you as an audience out there have enjoyed our discussion. If you haven't seen the movie, go out and see it. Go see the movie. Come back, listen to our discussion. Let us know down in the comments what you thought. And I guess we'll go around, and
next week we're doing
next week, which is the start of June, we are doing Shrek the Musical. So come on back for that as well. But that being said, why don't we tell the audience a little bit about ourselves and what we do? So, Tammy, take it away. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm your worst nightmare. No,
I better run. Diego,
I go on this channel and another one with David and talk with everybody and get their opinions and thoughts and likes and dislikes about different movies. And it's always a lot of fun because, you know, when it's not my chance to pick, then a lot of times I end up seeing movies that I probably would never have seen otherwise. So it can be quite fun. And now that the weather has changed, I was at my first car show over the weekend and it was great. So,
alrighty. Heading over to you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm Kotobukijake. I am the sometimes co-host of SeptumSin versus the World, a YouTube channel. And I am pretty much always busy doing something or other. I'm still kind of getting my head on straight about having gone on a multi-state trip a couple weeks. Got to see a lot of really cool stuff, and getting back into the grind, though. I do work quite a bit, and also have a vegetable garden I've been working hard to whip back into shape because apparently it got too far out of shape while I was gone. And try to find time for writing, for exploring, what have you. And I always try and find time to join these folks to discuss movies every week. And we've also got an upcoming discussion on our channel. We'll be looking at Adventure Time Season 2 this week, I believe.
Yep, Wednesday.
Yay, so I'm getting there. And, well, that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, heading over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I'm SeptumSin of SeptumSin versus the World. We love our physical media, and we try to do what we can. I try to get a pickup video every week on Wednesdays, and I try to do a review video every Thursday, and an anime or animation discussion once a month, every last Wednesday of the month. And as Jake said, we're doing Adventure Time Season 2, as we're trying to go through the whole of it. But we'll be taking a break from Adventure Time after this one because June and July will be working with birthday anime. So we'll be doing anime again on Animation Anticlimax, at least for 2 months. As far as other things going on, I am also working to try and write another film script, and that's been going slow because I'm trying to get a feature-length script, and that takes a long time. So lots of various fun projects in the works, but never enough time to get them all done. And this week, we're going to be, like I said, we're going to be taking a break after this week's Thursday. We're taking a break from reviews because I'm doing some travel content. But this week's is all about reviewers and expectations people seem to have about reviewers.
You can't walk on that.
And so on. I do enjoy these discussions, and it's good to get on every week.
Sorry about that. Diego decided to walk all over my iPad.
Well, as they do.
Alrighty. And my name is David Striggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey as Diego punches me in the stomach. We go on almost every Monday to come and chat with these fine folks that you've all heard about. And but I'd also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where I also go on almost every Sunday or so, at least if I'm not busy or at least what have you. And I know that we just recently went on about The Tingler. So if you haven't checked that discussion out, I know we went on about The Tingler on this channel, but we didn't with this group. So it was definitely interesting, especially since one of us hadn't watched it. So it's that's always an interesting viewpoint to get, and whatnot. So, but I do believe that we are going to be going on about 12 Angry Men this next week. So,
good movie.
It's going to be an interesting discussion. Since I myself, at least on my choices, I'm going to try to follow some films that had like full-blown trials in them. So, but in any case, definitely come listen to us, what have you, and let us know what you think. But I do some video pickups and some video reviews. In fact, Brandon and I, a week ago now, went on about some of our pickups. So if you have not seen that video, just definitely go ahead and watch it. Also, we have films and CDs for sale in our Kunaki shop. So please check out the link that is embedded in our info. And check us out. We're soon to have another movie probably up there for sale within the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye out for that. And we'll see you next week here on Inside Movies Galore. Everyone say good night.
Good night.
Hey, everyone.
Oh, and don't forget, next week is Shrek the Musical. But we're not done with Shrek yet.
No, definitely not.
But then we're done with Shrek after that.
But make sure that you are primed and ready with your gaseous moments. So.
Inside Movies Galore just makes you just want more. We've had all in the world of media to explore. Horror, anime, or Curious George. Our love of new things was our reward. It is the best night of our week.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.